Hello, this is Malorian, and this is the Orc Tactical Team, and I just want to do a separate little video, which is kind of the 101 of bluffing. And what this comes from is just a little while ago, I had a game with my vampire counts against my brother Skaven. And there's a really neat dynamic there, because I had Wraiths, which are devastating. He had a Hell Pit Abomination, which is devastating. However, which one is going to be devastating over the other depends on a 15-point upgrade. Is that HPA magical, or is he not? And that's huge, and especially in a, of course it doesn't matter in a system where you can see army lists, but if you can't see army lists, all of a sudden you might want to use this to your advantage. The way it worked in our game is that I placed down my Wraiths right away, right in the center. He placed his Hell Pit Abomination on the far side, so right away I knew that he didn't have those magical attacks. Whereas if he would have put them right in the center, then I would go, oh my god, he has magical attacks, and I actually would have avoided him, even though he didn't have it. So when I talked to my brother about it after, you're saying, oh, you know, I'm just not big on this bluffing stuff. I just thought, you know, there's probably a lot of people out there that's not very good at bluffing. You know, we're not all big poker players. I'm not a poker player. And even though I kind of touched on this on my psychological tactics, I just want to do a little bit more right here. So the first thing you have to kind of get through your head when you're talking about bluffing is not to compare it to cheating. You know, that might be the first way people might look at it, like, oh, you're throwing off your opponent and making them think something's true that's not. Well, it kind of is, but at the same time, there's nothing in the rules saying that you can try and trick your opponent or make them think something. And at all these points, we're not really going to be lying to them. You know, you can even be moving that in too, where you can just directly say, haha, my Hell Pit Abomination has, you know, magical attacks. An outright lie, but you can also do it other ways, just from, like I was saying, placing them. So that's going to be the main thing that people have against it ethically, and once you get past that first hurdle, that's really the first thing you have to get past of. So the first thing that's going to be needed after that to be a good bluffer is you almost have to be just a good actor. It has to just kind of come out of you naturally. And some of the ways you're going to be looking at this is trying to think of the way that they're looking at you. And so let's look at the first thing, which is the bluff itself. The bluff has to be somewhat believable. If you go into this and try and say something like, haha, this entire unit are all vampire lords, or they're all orc war bosses, well, they'll know that you're a liar, and that's not going anywhere. You know, if it's something more like the fanatics in the unit, where they think, you know, a fanatic could be in that unit, and so you have fanatics on the side, or you make a comment that, oh, if you charge me, these fanatics would really devastate you. And really, going back to the lying thing too, what's the difference in the way I say this? Haha, their fanatics is really going to destroy you when you charge, as opposed to, oh man, fanatics really do a wallop on knights. One's a statement, one's a lie. So if that's what it takes to get past this ethically, do it. So going back to this, make your bluffs believable. And the second part that's critical with this is you almost have to, as an actor in your head, believe it. Because if you are subconsciously knowing that, oh, I'm a lie, I'm just going to lie, well, you might be showing off some signs of this. And so if you just go into it and just kind of make a half-truth in your head that, this is this truth right now, and then just completely act and talk as if that was true from there on, that's probably going to be one of the best ways to try and pull off this bluff. The next thing you should really look at is your voice. Your voice can easily throw it off and let them know that you're bluffing. If you do something like all of a sudden you start stunning and like, and these guys, fanatics, yeah, those would be really deadly, huh? Well, that kind of really shows that it's a bluff. Another thing is if you raise your voice and you're talking about, okay, I'll move this and move this. Oh, and fanatics would really hurt you. They know again that something is up, right? So you have to kind of control your voice. The next thing to do or look at is eye contact. And it's actually, you have to do opposite things depending on what's happening. So if it was something where you are doing other stuff and just trying to say this as a offhand thing, so if I'm looking down here and talking about like magical attacks and the HBA will, you know, rip apart wraiths, if I'm not doing eye contact before the statement, I shouldn't be making eye contact after the statement. You know, blah blah, whoa, what a good game, I hope my HPA gets in contact with you because he has magical attacks. You know, it's really obvious. And then the other way is the way as if you were having eye contact before and looking at them and talking about something, you know, oh, I'm going to a tournament next weekend, and then you make your bluff and you kind of look away. They're going to know that you are uncomfortable, and probably the main thing is probably that you lied and you did a bluff or something. So eye contact, depending on what you're doing before the bluff, is critical. There's also, going a little bit deeper, something I learned from psychology, that the way that people look around with their eyes actually deals with whether it's a lie or not. And that's because different sections of your brains deal with different things, and it's actually subconsciously going to your eyes when you're trying to access those memories. And what it is if you're ever trying to think of something and actually try to remember, like, oh, what was that thing I'm trying to remember? You look one way, and if it's a complete lie, you look a different way. And the way that it typically goes is that if it's something you're trying to remember, you go this way, they look up to their right, and if it's something they're just making up, they go off to their left. So this is something that's supposed to be more, you know, their subconscious is controlling it, so if you catch them looking one way or another way, you can kind of tell if it's a lie. But then again, that's a little bit more advanced, and it could also be totally wrong, because who knows, maybe a light bulb just went off over there and they're looking that way. Or maybe they even already know about this and they're trying to throw you off, right? So that's something that you can be watching for, but I wouldn't be throwing as much into it as the other things where they say something and they look away. So that's all very important. Another way that you can try and sneak things in is to put a lie sandwiched together with something else. And so what it'd be is, of course, you're talking about one thing that's completely true, then you put in the bluff, and then you put in something else. And the reason is, if you're just playing and you just make the statement, something like, good thing I gave my war boss magical weapons, it could be seen kind of out of place. But if you're just talking about your army, like, oh, I'm really loving my army. Look, I have all these night goblins. They do so well with all the combat res. There's so many great magical weapons you can give the war boss. I love the build I have for him. Oh, and these chariots, they smash and they do so much damage. All of a sudden you snuck in that fib with other things, and it kind of makes it so that when they're hearing it, it kind of just passes right over and they don't even think about it. Another way that I've heard that you can get fibs across is actually going and making it a little bit more mumbly. So you'd be talking about something, and what you do with that sandwich is that you say the beginning part, whenever you don't want to listen to somebody, it's usually because they have an annoying voice, they're talking about something boring, something like that. And so really, you're using that. So you'd be dragging like, oh yeah, I love the paint job on these guys, look at them. Oh yeah, look at the green, I did such a good green on here. And oh, I love the magic weapon on this guy. And oh yeah, then the chariot over here, did you see the boars? The boars are great. And the idea here is that they're basically trying to phase you out, because like, oh, just shut up, shut up, shut up. But they're still hearing you. So what the difference is here is that even though they're registering in their head that his guy has magical weapons, because he's trying to block you out, he's also not being judgmental, because he's already being judgmental of the whole thing. Like, oh my god, this guy's a freak, why don't you just shut up? And he's not focusing on this one thing and thinking, is he lying? So that's a big thing there too. The final thing to do is try and not get to have the main thing is, if you ever get caught once for bluffing, they're going to know you as a bluffer. And then from that point forward, they're going to be looking for it or even expecting it. It could be that once they know you're a person that bluffs, they're not even going to listen to you anymore, or they might even be trying to catch these bluffs so they can catch you with it and really crush you. If my brother knew I was a bluffer and I threw those guys right up to the front, he might go, oh yeah, well, I don't believe you, I'm going to put this right here. So you can actually start having this turn against you. So first of all, if you ever think you're going to be caught with a bluff, the next thing you have to do is cover it with another bluff. And the best thing I can find for doing that is pretending you're stupid. So, if they're like, oh, do you really have magical, like, oh, sorry, no, I was thinking my other army list, right? So, in kind of admitting, like, and making them think that, okay, sorry, I made a mistake, I'm an idiot, I was thinking of this other army list, they're thinking that this guy's foolish, idiotic, clumsy, whatever, instead of a bluffer. And so that going forward, who cares if they think you're an idiot? That you can actually use that to your advantage later. But the fact that they don't think you're a bluffer is a main thing. And going past that, if the word's already out and the guy you're playing against knows you're a bluffer, you can start trying to go for like the double bluff, so that you're saying something that he will think is a bluff, so he'll go to jump on it, but it's really not. So if I was having that, if I was a Skaven player and I was going against the vampire person and I knew he thought I'm a big bluffer, I would go down and I'd be putting him there like, okay, bring on your wraith. I totally gave him magical attacks, although making it a little bit more realistic. He thinks, oh, you know, he's just a bluffer or a liar. I'm just going to go kill him with my wraith. I'll show him. And then it turns out you did give him magical attacks and you smash him. So it really gets into like a kind of spy versus spy thing. But again, to kind of backtrack here, the very first steps to go into this, make it believable, watch your voice, watch your eye contact, and if you're getting caught, get out quick so that they believe you. Or if nothing else, just say, okay, yeah, you caught me, and that's it. Just have like a friendly game from there on. So that's it, Bluffing 101. Hope you learned something from it, and talk to you next time. Bye.